Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about FireCrawl. And this is the part of the LibreChat that we are going to use in order to crawl websites and fetch information that we can use in our language model and answer questions. So we have gone through and created a search engine where you can meta search up which different sites are interesting for your query. Now we're gonna fetch all the information for that query, and then we're gonna rank it and summarize it so we can actually use it in our model. And I think that FireCrawl that we're going to go through today might not be something that everybody needs to install on their machine. They have a pretty good model where you can pay a little sum and they actually doing the crawling for you. And the reason I think that is good because you don't want this massive hit on a bunch of different websites at once. So maybe you want some place where a lot of information is already stored and then you gather the information from there instead. But of course, if you are running a business or a larger organization, then the crawling might make sense, and it will take a lot of CPU power because you set it up in a clustered way. So it's a lot of components here. You're gonna have a database, you're gonna have a Redis, and you're gonna have a bunch of workers and an API that is going to go out and fetch all of this information. And you can choose to run, like in my case, 2 workers, and in your case, perhaps 32 workers that is actually doing the actual crawling, which means that this is not something that you just set up willy-nilly. It's a lot of work. But I'm going to go through it either way. So let's switch over to my screen here. First off, we need some prerequisites. We need the Postgres database. We need Git to get the code that we're going to deploy later on. We need curl in order to fetch more information, and vget. Both those two are used interchangeably, and I use both of them in this case. And then they also run cron jobs inside of curl, so we're going to install that extra package to Postgres for cron jobs. And let's go through here and do this installation. It's a couple of packages, so it will take a little while, not that long, but I'm gonna get back to you when this is done. And we are back, and now we have installed Postgres, the database we're gonna use. We're gonna configure it a little bit. So we're gonna enter the configuration file for Postgres, and in this file we're gonna look for something called shared preload libraries. And this is currently commented out, so we're gonna put it back, and then we're gonna add pg cron, so the cron job in Postgres, and we're also gonna decide which database is gonna run this. So we're gonna add cron dot database name FireCrawl. So that is what we need to add into our Postgres database to run the cron jobs. And then I'm gonna run restart and check the status of this this database server. So it takes a while to restart, and we see that it ended up starting up correctly. Next up, we're gonna install Redis, and we're gonna follow the Redis install guide pretty much. So first off, we need to install LSB release and GNU private guard, not PGP, GPG. And then we're gonna add a key here using this from Redis. And so we have the key for our repository, and we also need to give that key the correct permissions, 664, and then we're gonna add it into a new list file in our apt directory. So in apt sources list D in the etc directory, we're gonna add Redis list with the current release for our system. So it actually knows what to download. So it's found bookworm, and we added it there. Next up, we're gonna do an apt update, and then we're gonna do an apt install Redis. So we get the Redis package up and running. And when this is done, shouldn't take that long, we will enable the Redis server and start the Redis server. And if we check the status, it should be up and running. So now we have one more service here. Next up, we need a bunch of things to compile things. And this is going to use Go, it's going to use Rust, it's going to use JavaScript. So there is a lot of it. But we're going to start with Go. So we're going to wget a Go version here. And then I'm going to remove the USR local Go if there was one before. And then we're going to unpack this Go version into that directory, and we're going to remove the tar gzip file. We're going to set the path for Go, and we're going to run Go with version to see that we get 1.25.4 as our version. Next up, I'm going to create a user for FireCrawl, and it's commented FireCrawl, and it's going to have the home directory of opt FireCrawl. So now we have that user, we're going to create a home directory in opt, and we're going to give it permissions. So we're going to set the owner to FireCrawl and the group FireCrawl, and then we're going to enter a new shell as FireCrawl. And here we need to install Node.js. So we're going to fetch Node.js and put that into, or run that particular script in order to install it, and then we're gonna run the script is telling us to run a piece of code in order to get it into our environment. So we can run home nvm sh, so it will load it into our system. And now when we have nvm, we now can install a particular node version. So this is a node version manager. So we're going to install node version 24 in our system. And when that is done, we will check with node-v to see that we got that version. And then we need to install something called pnpm, another manager. So we're going to use core pack and enable that. And we can check that we have PNP version here. And it actually download it and install it when we check the version. So now we have 10.23, which is going to be used later on in order to build our package. So now we can get FireCrawl. So we're going to git clone FireCrawl repository here. And when that is done, so we will switch to opt FireCrawl apps API. So into the API of this, we will edit the environment for this API. And this here, we're going to add all the configuration we need for this. And this is pretty much what they are saying on their site as a default configuration. Number of workers here per queue, I'm going to change that to 2. Otherwise, we have port 3002. We have current host. And then we tell it where Redis is located. And we also add the database here. And I'm going to have the user FireCrawl, Qwerty as a password, and the FireCrawl as a DB. And then all the others here are optional. We can add a bunch of extra things, but I'm not going to have Supabase or any of the other optional things. So this is a pretty much default configuration for this. Of course, you need a better password than that I chose if you're going to set it up, but this is what I chose for now. Next up, we're going to install Rust, because we're going to need that. So we do Rust up. And we just follow what they are saying on their site. We're going to proceed with the default here to get Rust installed. And this will take a little while, so I will skip until we are done. And we are done, so let's enable this cargo environment. And now we can go into the API directory again and do pnpm install. So this will install our packages. So it's about to download, and now it's running. And if we hadn't installed Rust and Go, this would fail. So this PNP is actually calling out and running some Rust code, it's running some Python code, it's running some Go code, and it's also running a bunch of JavaScript code. So there is a lot of different technologies built into this, and building this will take a little while, so I will skip until we are done here. And we are back, so now we have done that installation. Next up, we're gonna set up some Postgres tables. So we're gonna switch out here and let's see, do a sudo into the Postgres user instead. And then we're gonna run Postgres with the root user. We're gonna create a database called FireCrawl. We're gonna create a user, FireCrawl, with the password QWERTY. And we're gonna give all the privileges to the database and to this user. We're gonna switch over to that FireCrawl database. And we're gonna check the current extensions installed. We see that we don't have any extra extensions here, so we're going to create pgcron, and if we check that again, we have pgcron, but its owner is Postgres, so we're going to give privileges to FireCrawl, to this cron, and now we can see that the user FireCrawl is also able to do that. Now we can jump out here, and now that we have that extension installed, we want to add the schema, but I can't do that as a root user because everything will be owned by root then, and then we need to do a lot of grand things, and we're not up to that. So we're going to load it with the FireCrawl user. So we're going to do PSQL with the host localhost, user FireCrawl, database FireCrawl, and then the current file, this Nook Postgres SQL. And we're going to give it the password here, QWERTY, and it's loading. So now we have everything loaded into this. And we get a couple of errors here. I'm not really sure why, but it seems to have loaded everything in. So now, next up, we are going to create a new file in local bin called FireCrawl sh, and this is going to be our start script. And because we are using so many technologies, I'm going to do a bash script where we are enabling Rust, we are enabling Node, and we also will export the path to Go, and we will jump to the API endpoint and then run pnpm start. And that is the start script for this. So now that we have a startup script, we need to give it access so it can actually run. So we're gonna give it run privileges or executable, and we're gonna also give it the owner of FireCrawl. And in order to start this up, we're gonna create a service. So in systemd system, we are gonna have a FireCrawl service. And this is very standard. I've done this multiple times before. We have a FireCrawl service. It wants to have a network. It needs to have that enabled. And then we have a runtime director of FireCrawl, and we will put the PID in that file. And it's a simple type of service with the user FireCrawl. And then we have restart and timeout, as we usually do for this service. And then we do a system control daemon reload to get that script loaded. And we're gonna do start, enable, and then check status, and it's up and running and active. And we can also do journal control the current unit of FireCrawl and follow this, because it actually takes a while for the service to start up, because first time you start it up, it will compile a couple of things for the API. It's gonna run a bunch of Go code and install things to get that up and running. It's gonna start these cron jobs and so on. So there is a bunch of different components that needs to be started, compiled, and get running in different threads. So it will take a while before everything is up and running and we can actually start querying this service. Now we see that it runs a bunch of different workers in order to answer things, and then the API starts up here and we see that all services are running and we are listening on port 3302. So now we have FireCrawl up and running, and you see here there is so many services running on this machine, And we're going to do a simple test here. And just to see that it works, we can call it with test. And we will get cannot get test. Okay, let's try to post a crawl here and see what happens. Yep, so that seems to work at least. And if we do follow here, we can see that it has done some scraping. So maybe they have updated and removed this test command from the actual work here. Because that is not working anymore. But that was something that they told me on their site, that this is something you can run in order to check that it works. And before it actually gave back for the test call hello world. So it's not that important. We see that we can do scraping with this tooling. So this was what I wanted to cover today. I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you learned something today. If you like this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And I really hope to see you in the next video.